I guess first, then let's just kind of jump into what we got as a game. This is, we're talking about Netrunner, the LCG run by Fantasy Flight between 2012 and 2018, run by Null Signal after 2018, originally created by Richard Garfield with Wizards in...
Your boy Garfield at it again!
Hell yeah, I love my boy Richard. Getting up to some bullshit, making a card game that's weirdly good and then hampered by outside forces he cannot control.
Yeah, that was 96. Fell off after a couple sets. Remade by Fantasy Flight with the same systems, but a new setting, Android Netrunner, which we'll be seeing bits of. But the game is, 2-player. You're playing against another, but you're not playing the same side. It's asymmetric in that. Right here we have Jinteki. This is a corporation identity that defines what cards you can play, what your deck size is, and the ability that you have base.
So this is kind of like similar to like your hero in universes, yeah?
Yeah. So to quick explain what we have on here that's like usable information, we have our faction, which is, this is Jinteki. That's one of the 4 corps. I'll talk about those when we get a little deeper. Mm-hmm. We have the ability on here that is whenever an agenda is scored or stolen, do 1 net damage. That raises a couple questions about what all that means.
There's a lot of damage types we're gonna have to touch, and it's
cool.
very silly. I love it. The idea of meat damage versus internet damage.
But the 45, the 2 numbers in the bottom left control your deck building. 45 being your minimum deck size, and 15 being the amount of influence you have to pull out of faction cards.
Right. This game like locks you into an identity like Hearthstone, but then gives you flex points. Right? Is like kind of the idea. Yeah. Sick. Okay. Yeah. God, that's so cool. I love that system.
So we're going to be seeing on the next card type, or not on that, on a few future card types, we'll be seeing the influence points that a card would cost to pull in. Otherwise, you're just using Jinteki or neutral cards. The 2 bits on here that beg some questions. First is just the idea of an agenda. Yeah. That is a card type that is controlled by the corporation's deck. That's not the agenda I wanted. We want this one's more. Here we go. An agenda, these are the victory points of the game. These are all contained within the corporation's deck. That's one side. The other side of the game, by the way, so one side is playing the big mega corporation, while the other side is playing the hacker.
Johnny Hackers. Yeah.
So that's the setup of the game. You and your opponent share no cards. You're building with a completely different card pool than your opponent, because corporations have all the points and defenses, and the runner has all of the offensive tools for stealing and the protection pieces.
And the idea for like corporations to win, right, is to like complete enough like nefarious corporation maneuvers before they are stopped on time. Like, finishing your government contracts that are definitely above board.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so the based on your deck size, the corpse deck has to contain enough points to make the game playable. On 45, 45 is the normal deck size, but we do have bigger and smaller deck sizes for that. But you're going to be generally seeing 45. On 45, you're going to be seeing like 20 points in the deck. Okay. The win condition is a player gets to 7. And both sides get to points in different ways. So going back to, there's also a couple
Kobuddy,
other.
to get out of the way of the cards, I want you to know I'm gonna be your hat for a little bit.
That's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Just making sure
Alright.
you consent to having a dog hat. Okay, sorry. Continue.
That sounds great.
Yeah. But yeah, so the gameplay of Netrunner is the corporation is trying to play and score these government, these schemes, while the runner is trying to steal them and uncover them to get to 7 points. And that's why you have to include so many. Every 5 cards you add in addition to your deck size, you have to add 2 more points to keep the ratio the same.
Oh, okay. So there is like a
Jeez,
mandated
okay.
ratio. Okay, interesting.
Yes. What this also means is so that does mean that having a smaller deck size, like on if I go back to our corporation, 45 is the minimum here. If you were able to have 40 on some other identity, then you would.
You would
be
need
able to
like
play
less
less
points
points.
overall. Yeah. Because your
Yes.
deck is smaller. Because it's what matters is the ratio, which it makes sense, right? It's like the same thing as like trying to build a mana base for a deck, where it's like about
Yeah.
the overall consistency and the percentage of draw, as opposed to being just flat out like value. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's the big thing. The structure of the game is back and forth, where the corporation gets to take. Each player gets to take a set number of actions before their turn is over, and those actions can be whatever you want. Both sides, it's 4 actions. With the corporation, the first action is a mandatory draw. They always have to draw, and then they get 3 actions. Whereas the runner gets 4 actions, whatever they want. They don't even get a forced draw. You could have a runner game where you just don't draw cards for a couple turns because you don't care. You're doing other things.
Oh, is drawing just like you can spend an action cost
Yeah,
for a draw?
So as a basic action, you can play a card. As a basic action, you can draw a card. As a basic action, you can gain $1.
Sick.
And there's a couple other basic actions for each side that are a bit special. The corporation has an action where that they can use to advance a card they control. And that comes back to the agendas. In order for the corporation to score an agenda, they have to place it face down on the table, and then using the advancing action, advance it a number of times equal to the top right number. As you might notice, 5 is much larger than the 3 actions you would have in a turn. And on the runner's turn, if a card's just on the table, they can just go get it.
I was gonna say, so what you'd want to do is like wait for the corp to invest some into the contract and then like duff it away and just like blow as many resources and time of the corp as you can.
Yeah. Though of course the corp, there's a number of different card types on both sides. The corporation wants to play these agendas on the table and then score them to get the points, whereas the runner only needs to touch them and they just steal it. So what's the corporation to do? Well, the corporation is going to invest in Ice. This is a defensive card that they get to play anywhere on the table. They can play it to defend a card in play, or they can play it to defend a zone. When we get to the runner, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But the runner, as one of their actions, can choose to just attempt to access a card, run at a card on the table, or run at your deck, run at your graveyard, run at your hand.
So, oh god, so you can run at any zone. So like in theory, you would have a deck, a graveyard, and then the corp would have like some face down cards at the back of the table that are theoretically agendas. They don't have to be. I'm assuming you can just put wherever.
Yeah, perhaps
okay.
Perhaps it is an agenda, perhaps it is a trick to get you to waste your money, perhaps it is a trap to get you to
because you could just
lose
put some like
your pants.
Yeah, you could put some bull crap in the back and then just put like a bunch of ice in front of it, and then they waste a bunch of resources running on it, and you're like, thanks, so I'm just gonna win the game off these other two agendas you have not looked at at all.
Yeah, let me I'll have to find a better visual reference for. Here we go. Thank you, board game.
I was gonna say, do we have like a table state we could look at? Because that would definitely.
Yeah. So so in play here. This is like a corporation board with our Jinteki identity. The identity represents your hand, HQ. All the places have different names. Your hand for the corp is HQ. Your deck is R&D, and your graveyard is archives. For the runner, that also is different. You have the heap, your graveyard. You have the stack, your deck, and you have your grip, your hand. But the cards in play that are sideways are your defenses. Those are your ice to make it so that the runner has trouble coming in and stealing your cards. So the runner, in this instance, there's cards in front of your deck because the runner could just choose for one of their actions to go, I'm just going to look at the top card of your deck, and if it's an agenda, I'm taking it. And
yeah, so if you don't defend, that would be R&D, right?
Yes, that is R&D.
So yeah, I guess like trying to simplify this for folks who like aren't as card inclined. Basically, like the corporation has a backline of their deck, their graveyard, and a number of chicken nuggets that either could be very valuable or nothing at all. And that's the Joker's trick of Netrunner. And then you put defenses in front of it as the corporation. So you're just like all defensive play as a corp. You put your little piles in the back, you put stuff in front of them, and you say, good luck picking the right one, asshole. And that's like what you do. Whereas the runner is very all offense, very trying to break in, trying to cause problems, this, that, and the other. Whereas the corpse is just trying to like block you out until they're done.
Yeah, so the corp is defending their locations. They're with the ice, which stays in play and costs either perhaps boots out the runner or does something nasty to them. This one, the toll booth, has kind of both sides of that at an expense. And then you also have, in addition to agendas that you can play out there, as we saw in our previous image, we had another card sitting out there. You have, as the corporation, you have assets that also sit in play that may or may not be things that benefit you, or maybe something that you want to use as a trick to pull in the runner if you set down a snare, for instance. When they touch it, bad things happen to the runner. The last bit we have as far as a corp card type, or last two bits we have as far as a corp card type, we have upgrades. These can go in a server or in a main server, in any server, main or otherwise, in addition to the card that is the server, the asset, or the agenda. The corp is the side that's playing with all the information. All the cards the corp plays are face down until they do something with them. So they're playing an information game where the runner doesn't know what's going on.
So like you would put this on one of your prize cards basically, and then when the runner tried to make a run on that prize card, you would flip this over and be like, okay, picking up my ice is cheaper now. And then you flip over all your ice and you're like, okay, good luck dealing with all this. Like that's
now all of a sudden, maybe they thought like, oh, well, you've only got like so much cash, you probably can't like defend this that well. And then you're like, oh, I rolled cool.
Oh yeah, because they're like, oh, they only have $3. They can only flip over one ice. I'll be fine. And then they go, Watanabe time, and you're like, ah shit. And they flip over 3. Okay, sick.
Yeah. The last card type that exists as far as the corp goes is just operations. These are sorceries. You can play them as one of your actions in a turn. The cost in the top left, whatever they do here.
Spend $5, get $9. Corporation classic.
Classics of, because as I mentioned, you can gain money as an action without playing a card, just one. But using cards in your deck to gain money.
Yeah, what if you had 4 instead of 1 at the cost of 1 action? Consider this.
Yeah. So yeah, going back to our board state I had here. This is the corp board state. We have the corporation is built out at like defenses that they want to, and cards they want to defend. A pad campaign here. I don't believe we can read it, but it gains you $1 every turn. And the runner could choose to go in and bop it to get it off the table if they so wanted.
Now, if the runner just touches it, do they get it for pad campaign, or is that what's that little dumpster? There's a trash can with a 4.
Yeah, let me pull up our snare again.
Yeah.
Snare has a trash can with a 0. That means that when the runner touches this, they can pay whatever the trash can is to get rid of it.
Oh, to put it in archives?
Yeah. So Snare is free to kill off. Pad campaign costs 4 to kill off. So you have to weigh $4 of my dollars to stop the corporation from gaining, $1, $1 a turn. At what point is that useful for me to pull the, pull the trigger on? Different cards will have different trash costs based on, traps like this usually are free to kill because they want them to work once, but some types of them aren't. So, but yeah, that's the corp side. The runner is the other side. We want to make sure we understand as well. They also have an identity with similar information. They have the deck size 45, the influence 50. Oh, I didn't mention the influence on these. The little pips in the bottom left corner here.
Oh, that's your color identity
okay.
points. Okay, that would cost 2 off-color points if you wanted to put it in a non-Jinteki deck?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you wanted 3 copies of this in a non-Jinteki deck, it would cost 6 of your 15 or whatever your number. But yeah, so with the runner, same thing. You have a deck size minimum 45. You have an influence number 15. You don't have any restrictions like the corp has. You don't have to include certain cards. You can do whatever you want. And then you have your ability. Kate here lowers the first card programmer piece of hardware by 1 in cost. In the top left, they have a link value that's used for a betting minigame that some cards use. The higher that number is, the better they are at this.
Nice. Love a little ante. I was worried it was going to be an ante, and I was like, uh-oh. No, it's okay. My boy Richard Garfield was on the team when they realized ante was a mistake the first time.
But yeah, so the runner has similar card types, but not the same. For instance, they have, instead of operations, they have an event. They have events. This might look familiar if you looked at Hedge Fund earlier.
Wait, spend $5 to make $9? That seems broken. What? How would they balance that? What do you mean they both have it? Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, they have events instead of operations, but they work the same way. They're sorceries, effectively one-shot cards you play. They also have so the corporation has ice cards that allow them to defend their servers. So the runner has icebreakers and programs, icebreaker being a subtype of that allow them to break those ice. If they use an icebreaker to break an ice, they don't destroy it, they just kind of move on to the next one.
And when it says subroutine, that's where it gets funky, because it means individual parts of it, right?
Correct. So if
God, okay.
Yeah, so if a piece of ice has multiple if it's it charges you $2, comma, you take damage, comma, end the run, you would have to pay 1 just to prevent the end run, and so then everything else would still hit you. Jesus Christ. You know what? Great point, Mega Man. That's so, Each of those is individual.
Oh man, I love when you get the same piece of text multiple times on a card. That's like one of my favorite archetypes of just, oh man, trample and trample and trample, trample, trample.
Taunt, taunt, taunt,
Yeah,
taunt,
taunt.
So when you are breaking on a piece of ice, when you're breaking, break an ice subroutine, that breaks one of them. Now, like on this, we see that Crypsis breaks it for the same that you could pay. So you're probably not caring about that. But the point still stands if you have to break them individually. Both ice and icebreakers have card types to them. If we go to, let's pull up a different ice example. For instance, this is Wall of Thorns. There'll be a test at the end. All these cards I'm showing you are ones I'm going to come back to and ask you to evaluate.
I'm excited.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I assumed as much. I know the Sly 09 method.
Yeah. So, Wall of Thorns here costs 8 to flip face up. Once you res a piece of ice, it's you only have to pay for it once.
You pay the install cost once and then it's on there. Okay.
So the setup is the corporation pays once. The runner has to pay every time they try to break it. Every time they want to run your hand to try to steal a card, they got to get through. And
unless they
want to get
find a way to trash the ice entirely. Okay.
Yeah. The 5, you have to kind of rotate this in your head because you play this sideways. The 5 is how strong the ice is. Icebreakers need to hit this number in order to even interact with the card.
So there's weaker and stronger icebreakers, and almost certainly some that are okay, but they have a modality of you can pay to pump them.
So you can have an icebreaker, for instance, that has a really low strength and pumps cheaply, or maybe you have an icebreaker that has a medium strength and pumps really expensively. So it's really good at breaking 3 or lower. But anything above, it's oh god, this sucks. On here we have barrier. That's the important piece. On pieces of ice, there's 3 major subtypes. We have barrier. We have code gate, and we have sentry. Barriers generally just bop you, block you. They say go away.
They have a lot of do a thing, end the run kind of stuff.
Generally, the barriers will be the ones that say, get out, please leave. Code gates can do funky things. They might tax you, they might mess with you, they might do more interesting things. They also can stop you. But also, then we have sentries. These ones fuck with you. These ones want to mess you up. These are if a barrier is a wall, if a code gate is kind of a fuzzy, hard to get through static, this is a gun.
It do say sentry on it.
Yes.
Yeah, and destroyer too. So trash one program. So that's destroying 2 permanents if you slam into this thing incorrectly.
Yeah. On the same side of that, icebreakers will also have ice programs that break these. Let's go grab a fun one of these. Will generally break 1 subtype.
Oh, so you just have a 0. Okay, so this one in particular is if you run into a 3 power or less code gate, you just blow it up for free.
Yeah, you just break it for 3, but you can't get anything above that. So.
Oh, because it doesn't have a way to pump. Okay, yeah.
But yeah. But so there's 3 different types, and so in general you have your 3 different types, and then you'll have generic breakers. The Crypsis I had here, for instance, is an AI breaker, which means it can break anything, but usually at a higher cost because it can do that everything. But yeah, that's icebreakers. You play them. You have to break every time you want to get into an area, whereas the corp only has to spend once. your goal as a runner a lot of times is to find whatever your main, your barrier breaker, your gate breaker, and your sentry breaker to set up your board. And then now there aren't defenses that can stop me. There are only defenses that can slow me down.
God, I feel like I'm going crazy trying to figure out if Crypsis is good or bad. I've been sitting here looking at this shit for like a minute, just being like, it's a 0 power, but you can pump it, but also like it does a thing, but also there's a downside to doing a thing, but
So 2 other pieces I wanted to touch on for runner side stuff to talk about their boards, and then we can kind of get back into the actual.
Yeah, I did have a quick question.
And questions, of course. Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, so in the top left where it says you pay 5 to play this.
Oh, that's good.
You don't have to pay that 5 every time you do a run, right?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, you pay 5 to put this into play, and then you have to pay for its abilities.
Right.
One thing I should mention.
I was going to say, is the wooden chip, do you have like a maximum capacity for creatures, or I'm sorry, icebreakers? yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, so if I pull up, let's go ahead and pull up a differently formatted card, because the formatting on null signals cards and FFG's cards is different here. This is a ident from null signals era. You see that 4 we have here?
Yeah,
That's your memory. That's how many programs you can control.
Okay. So that's
general,
a factor of your identity up front. Okay.
Yeah. I want to say it was just that your identity was it was 4 base, like always. It's on the new style cards as a thing that can change. Most programs cost 1, but some bigger programs might cost 2 of your 4 memory. You do have to work around that. And there are ways to increase your memory with other card types, such as pieces of hardware. Hardware is your in-play card type that's kind of the like you play it and it's there. It's built.
It's like an enchantment, kind of.
You have 2 different types. We're gonna have hardware and resources. Resources are a little bit more ephemeral. Can be more ephemeral. Not always. There are ways for the corp to interact with resources innately, whereas hardware they can't. The main type of hardware you're going to see is a console. You can only have 1 console type in play, but it gives you memory and then some other effect, usually. Desperado here lets you gain a buck whenever you make a successful run.
I was going to say, this one seems great. For 3 cost, 1 plus 25% memory and a buck every run. That seems Gucci for this cheat. But I don't know. This is the console I've seen.
But yeah, because other, let me pull up another console for a point of comparison.
18, huh?
So here's Monolith. This gives plus 3 memory, and when you play it, lets you play a bunch of programs for a much lower cost.
Your grip is your hand, I presume?
Yes, that is your hand. Okay. So yeah, hardware is a type of a permanent type that sticks around a lot more. Resources are the other card type, and resources can have a couple different, like Aesop's pawn shop here is like, oh, this is a connection you have that gives you an effect, allows you to pawn off a card for $3 every turn. As a rule, the corporation can trash resources if you're tagged. That's a mechanic of, like, they know where your house is.
Okay. So like if you get traced real bad by like an ice, like you try to do a run and you get absolutely busted.
So like Snare here does 3 net damage and gives the runner a tag. If the runner is ever tagged, the corp can use one of their actions to pay 2 and just blow up a resource. That's why resources are a little more ephemeral. The runner on the opposite end can remove the tag for $2 on an action. I also should, I guess, explain. I haven't explained damage. I mentioned that the win con is getting 7 points for either side.
You can just kill the runner, though, right?
You can just kill the runner.
Word.
When the runner takes damage from any source of damage, there's a couple different sources, but all of them share, discard a card at random. If you can't, die.
Oh.
So 3 net damage, if you have 2 cards in hand, you immediately have lost.
Whoa, okay.
I
If you have
love
3
this.
cards in hand,
That's so
you lose.
scary.
So very early on when we talked about the corporation puts a card face down on the table and goes, all right, I've put a card in play. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. You tell me. And the runner has to guess, do I need to go in there and bop it? Or is this a trick? Is this something that the corporation is just setting up as a honeypot for me to die? And so you might want to draw extra cards before you make it, your run. You might want to take defensive, build, play some defenses. There are a couple different, there's 2 different types of damage that are the same, meat and net. The difference is net damage is you're getting zapped over the internet. Meat damage is somebody has taken a bat to your kneecap. Yeah. But you both discard at random. Core damage used to be called brain damage in older cards that we'll be seeing here. Also has the effect of lowering your maximum hand size in addition
That's a
to
good
the damage.
change. I just want to highlight that that's a good wording change.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't
Yeah.
have to because it's very clear in context that it means something else, but that's good that they did
Yeah.
that. That's a good separation. I like that change.
I want to mention that because we're going to be seeing cards in both sides. Like as I showed, Monolith can prevent brain damage that is the same as core damage.
So taking core damage, though, is god-awful, is what it sounds like. Like, maximum hand size, not only can you not hold tools, you also die easier.
Yeah, I guess to mention bits here, both players start with a 5 max hand size. And both players start with $5 at the start of the game. I didn't mention that, but that's the starting money. Can you heal core damage? You can gain, you can play cards that give you max hand size, which is not the same. But you can offset it, but you have lost something core to you. That's the point of it. Of note, so you can draw above 5, but at the end of the turn, you're going to have to discard down to 5. If you take core damage, you'll have to discard down to 4. If you take more than 1 core damage, let's say 6, at the end of the turn, you're going to be asked to discard down to -1. You
So
can't.
die.
You die.
Parrots got
On
it.
the other side of the coin, you can, the corporation has the mandatory draw, and much like a magic deck will lose if they fail to draw. That one's a lot less likely, because that means all 20 or so of the points are somewhere in play. Like they all exist, so it's a lot rarer for that to be a situation that happens. But it is a situation that can happen. Yeah, if the runner runs out of cards, cool, keep going. They don't lose until they die.
Sick.
So yeah, that's our card types. That's our run through. Any questions on that? I know it's
I do have one really big important question, and that is,
you got it.
if someone, for example, was in the audience and they're hearing this description of Netrunner, and much like me, they're like, fuck, it sounds so cool and so smart, and I just want to give it a try and play it. But they don't produce cards of the game anymore, as far as I know, unless there's been fan stuff that's been being produced since the pandemic, in which case, tight, keep it up, gamers. Where could someone, for example, go online to play Netrunner, perhaps for free, with all sorts of people all over the world?
That's great. That's a great question. And yes, they have been making cards. As I mentioned, Fantasy Flight Games dropped the license to this in 2018. And at that moment, the player base went, nah. So that got taken over by Null Signal Games, which you can check out at nullsignal.games. As well as playing online, you can check that out over at jinteki.net, which I can just
I was gonna say Jinteki.net. That's what it, when I last checked in on it. That's what it was.
No Signal is what runs, like, creates new cards. Like, there are full sets, blocks, even formats that Null Signal has put out. You can purchase or proxy.
Sick.
But Jinteki, even when this was Fantasy Flight Run, this was the client where you could go play online. You can.
And some folks are posting in chat. There's a tutorial you can play against the computer at chirlboga.sifint.net.au. Shout outs to Australia. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks Australia. But yeah, we have a lot of, the game still survives even after Fantasy Flight lost the license to it. There are, like, I'm just gonna go to Netrunner DB, which is the site that if you're looking to know what cards are or releases are, everything from.
Oh man, they've made so many sets. Yeah, holy shit. When was the
from
license dropped? Was that 2018?
So Magnum Opus was the final event that Fantasy Flight ran.
Okay.
Everything else past that is taken over by Null Signal.
That's like half a decade of card production. That's insane. Holy shit. Okay. You know what?
Yeah.
I've had endless respect for the Netrunner crew for a real long time, but it's still going up, baby. They're finding ways to impress me more and more every day.
Yeah. Because they have their own, you can full sets that have their own agendas and all the mechanics, everything. It's still here. The game continues. It's great. Still going strong. You can, purchase the cards from like as a on-demand print. You can also just proxy up things. Like, go for it. It's hard to find late FFG cards. If you want to play the game, you can do it on Jinteki.net. You can proxy up a deck. There are definitely like starter deck lists you can find to just have a starting point for on here. So.
Proxies are 100% legal in paper.
Yeah,
it's so
absolutely.
cool when a game doesn't have tu problema as capitalism, except like in the inherent rules. Like, it is a game about capitalism problems, so it's very funny that it's like the one that doesn't have capitalism problems.
Yeah, I love it because Netrunner as a game, as a world, is already like a really big, very cyberpunk story that takes place all over the world. New Angeles, Ecuador, in India, in Russia, in the States, in all over the place with all sorts of folks of all walks of life. And the game also reflects that too. It's great. I love it. Netrunner kicks so much ass.
Yeah, all about it.
So yeah, let me pull up some of those cards to start you with. Just let's go back to.
Anyway, back to the hard part.
Yeah, let's go back to the part where you get to like tell me about cards here.